Humans have lived on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. But complex civilizations, the kind that built massive monuments and intricate artifacts, have only existed for the last 5,000 to 6,000 years. In that time, ancient people created incredible things that required years, even decades of hard work and skill. Many of these creations don't seem to have any clear practical use. Even more puzzling is the fact that the people who made them didn't leave behind any notes, writings, or texts explaining what these objects were for. Yet, these communities dedicated years, sometimes even decades, to making them, investing enormous skill, effort, and resources into objects that seem mysterious. Today, we'll explore some of the most baffling ancient creations that challenge everything we think we know about human history. In the remote hills of northern Laos, hidden beneath dense forests and mist, lie hundreds of massive stone jars scattered across the landscape. This mysterious place is known as the Plain of Jars, and it has puzzled archaeologists and explorers for decades. These jars vary widely in size. Some stand as tall as 2 meters, while others are smaller, but almost all are carved from solid stone, mostly sandstone or granite. Each jar weighs several tons, some as much as several thousand kilograms, and they are spread across the countryside in clusters, as if guarding ancient secrets. The true mystery is this: no one knows for sure who made these jars or why. The jars are believed to date back over 2,000 years, to the Iron Age, a time when early civilizations were beginning to develop complex societies. Despite their age and size, there are no written records or inscriptions that explain their purpose. This absence of any direct explanation makes the jars even more fascinating and more puzzling. Archaeologists have found human remains, pottery fragments, and charcoal near many of the jars, which suggests they may have been part of burial rituals. One theory is that the jars were used as funerary urns, containers for the dead or for ashes. But why carve such enormous stone vessels? Why scatter them over such a wide and rugged area? Some believe the jars were not just practical objects, but also held symbolic or spiritual significance. They might have been used in ancient ceremonies or rituals, connected to beliefs about life, death, and the afterlife. Transporting these giant jars from the quarries, sometimes miles away, must have been an incredible challenge for the people of that era. Without modern tools or machines, moving stones weighing tons across forests and hills required extraordinary effort and cooperation. Sometimes, the smallest objects hold the biggest mysteries. The Saqqara bird is exactly that. A small wooden carving discovered in an ancient Egyptian tomb near Saqqara, dating back more than 2,000 years. At first glance, it looks like a simple bird, a shape familiar and expected among ancient artifacts. But when you look closely, something unusual stands out. The wings and tail of the Saqqara bird don't resemble those of the birds commonly depicted in Egyptian art. Instead of smooth, rounded edges, the wings are sharply angled, almost aerodynamic in design. They look strikingly similar to the wings of a modern glider, carefully shaped to catch the air and glide smoothly. Now, this is where the mystery deepens. The ancient Egyptians were undoubtedly skilled architects, engineers, and artists, but there is no record or evidence of any flying machines or scientific understanding of aerodynamics in their time. So why would they carve an object that looks so much like a flying model? Researchers and enthusiasts have created replicas of the Saqqara bird, and these models don't just sit on shelves. They actually glide when thrown. This discovery adds an extra layer of intrigue. Was this simply a toy, a symbolic figure, or something else entirely? In Egyptian mythology, the concept of the soul, known as the Ba, was often represented as a bird flying between the worlds of the living and the dead. Some believe the Saqqara bird could be a physical representation of this spiritual journey, a symbolic object rather than a practical one. However, the precision of the bird's design raises questions. Could it be that the ancient Egyptians had an understanding of flight principles long before the modern age? Were they experimenting with gliding or aerodynamics in ways we have yet to fully comprehend? There are no written records or additional artifacts that support the idea of ancient Egyptian flying machines. Still, the Saqqara bird remains an enigmatic piece. In the ruins near Baghdad, archaeologists found something unexpected: a simple clay jar. But this wasn't just any jar. Inside it, there was a copper cylinder wrapped around an iron rod. This strange combination quickly earned it the name the Baghdad Battery. This artifact is thought to be around 2,000 years old, dating back to a time long before electricity was formally understood or used by humans. But what if I told you this small jar might have been one of the earliest batteries ever created? Scientists were curious. They built replicas of the Baghdad Battery using the same materials, copper, iron, and clay, and filled them with acidic liquids, like vinegar or lemon juice. When tested, these replicas generated a small electric current, proving that the original could have produced electricity. This discovery has sparked a lot of debate. Could ancient people have actually known how to generate and use electricity? What could they have used it for? One popular idea is electroplating, a process where a thin layer of metal is coated onto objects to protect them or make them more decorative. Electroplating requires electricity, so if the Baghdad Battery really was a battery, it might have been used for this purpose. Imagine craftsmen using electricity to make jewelry or tools sparkle. But not everyone agrees with this idea. Some experts think the jar was just a container for scrolls or something used in religious ceremonies. They argue that the battery theory is a modern interpretation, and the object might have had a completely different purpose that we don't understand yet. Another mystery is why there are no written records or other evidence describing the use of electricity in that era. If they really had this technology, why didn't it spread? Why does it seem to have vanished from history? Or perhaps it was a practical tool that simply disappeared over time, along with the knowledge of how to make it. In the tropical lowlands of Mexico, there are giant stone sculptures that have puzzled researchers for centuries. These are the Olmec colossal heads, massive carvings created by the Olmec civilization more than 3,000 years ago. What makes these heads so fascinating isn't just their size, but the many questions they raise about ancient skill and purpose. Each head is carved from a single block of basalt, a heavy volcanic rock. Some of these stones weigh as much as 40 tons. That's roughly the weight of 6 cars. But here's the real mystery. The closest sources of basalt are sometimes more than 60 miles away from where the heads were found. So, how did the Olmecs transport these massive stones across such long distances without modern tools or vehicles? The answer remains uncertain. Scholars believe they might have used rafts along rivers, or perhaps dragged the stones using logs and manpower. But moving such heavy loads through dense jungle and rough terrain would have been an incredible feat. Beyond the logistics, the heads themselves are remarkable works of art. Each one has unique facial features, detailed with remarkable precision. The faces show broad noses, thick lips, and distinct expressions. Some wear what looks like helmets or headgear, which many think might indicate they are portraits of rulers or warriors. Who were these people? Why were their faces immortalized in stone on such a grand scale? Some experts suggest these heads were carved to honor powerful leaders, preserving their likeness for generations. Others propose they held religious or ceremonial significance, perhaps representing gods or ancestors. The Olmec civilization is often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica because it influenced later societies like the Maya and Aztec. Yet, much about the Olmecs remains mysterious, including the full meaning behind these colossal heads. These monuments stand as silent guardians, holding secrets of a civilization that thrived thousands of years ago.